Hello Linux fans, Rob here and welcome to Linux Quest. So today we're taking a look at a Linux distribution that I'm very excited to share with you, and it's not new, it's been around a long time, and that is Peppermint OS, and this is version 7. And they've been out, I think they've had, the previous versions were 6 and 5. And the reason that I'm excited to share my overview or slash review of Peppermint is that it's truly a unique distribution. And what I mean by that is that the team at Peppermint has done something that I've never seen in other distributions, and that is they have picked various parts of other desktops and combined them to make what I think is a very cohesive, attractive, easy to understand with purpose desktop environment. So thus I think an easy and attractive distribution for potential new Linux users. And so here are some of the components that make this different. So the team has taken XFWM4 window manager and combined that with the XFCE bottom panel, which is this panel here, and they've used that in conjunction with the LXDE desktop environment. Now LXDE and XFCE are both light in terms of desktop environment. So they've added some other things too. Along with that, they have decided to go with the Nemo file manager, which is the file manager that you typically will find in like Linux Mint under the Cinnamon desktop environment. And you know, for those of you who have watched my other videos, you know I'm high on the Dolphin file manager, and I would say that the Nemo file manager, which is what they're using here, comes in a very close second there as far as file managers are concerned. And then they've also pulled in the Linux Mint software manager, which we'll take a look at. You know, you think about distributions, or at least I do, as I try different distributions. You know, you initially get a feel for a distribution the moment you launch into it and start finding your way around and exploring the operating system. And I just want to share my initial take is that what I think the team at Peppermint OS has achieved here is really something special and unique, and not just a distribution that wants to be different and unique. There was purpose behind it, and it's also very polished. I recently did a review on the Deepin desktop environment, and I did that through Manjaro. Deepin is a desktop environment that I think, you know, warrants keeping your eye on. And the reason is it's very intuitive, it's very polished, and that's what I want to see for the Linux world. I want to see that in more Linux distributions, and the reason is I really enjoy Linux. I enjoy the community, the software, the development, and I just think that the more time that developers put into the interface, ease of use, simplicity, and visual design, I think that's going to draw more Linux users into using Linux. Once they do and they see how Linux can run on systems without being bogged down, they can make updates without breaking things, typically, not always. I've broken my share in Linux, don't get me wrong, but for the most part you can do updates without slowing your system down or major crashes, and you can configure things in a way that, you know, is sometimes difficult to do in Windows, but certainly in Mac. I just think that distributions like this, like Peppermint OS, really help with that cause. Alright, so let's jump into things here, and one of the things right off of the bat is the Whisker Menu. And when I first started working with the Whisker Menu, I wasn't thrilled. You know, everything is there that needs to be there, but I just wasn't crazy primarily about where the categories are placed. They're on the right side, and I'm used to those on the left side. I also think you're taking up a lot of space here, and one of the reasons for that is you have program application descriptions. And I gave that some thought, you know. That lends to what I was talking about in the beginning. For a new user, these program descriptions I think are important. They may not know or be familiar with some of this Linux software, some of these Linux apps, and that description may really help with that. Now, the nice thing about the Whisker menu is it's also highly configurable. So for example, if we wanted to enlarge this pane, we could. But there's also deeper settings that you can get into. You simply right click and go to Properties, and from there we can change things like the application icon. So now we have icon and title by default. If we wanted to change that to just icon, you notice that the menu goes away. We could also go in and toggle off show application descriptions. Now, I'm familiar enough with Linux that I know what excuse me, most of the applications are and what they do, so I'm going to toggle that off, and I'll show you why in a minute. I think it gives a nice clean look. The other thing we're going to go in and change is behavior, and I'm going to choose position categories next to panel button. So we'll choose that and hit close. And now we'll go back here and look, and I'll give you an idea of the changes. So now we have our categories on the left, and I don't think I'm the only one who likes categories on the left there. It's muscle memory. And we've done away with the application descriptions. So now you've got a smaller window there because you don't have these long descriptions. And so for me, I think that's a neater, cleaner look. And so I applaud the Peppermint team for using, I keep wanting to say cinnamon, so if I say that in the video here, just understand that I mean peppermint. I'm just getting my spices all mixed up. Anyway, so I applaud the Peppermint team for choosing the Whisker menu because, again, it all works together to create a light desktop feel. And this is what I'm going to call a light distribution. And part of the reason that I say that this is a light distribution is because there's really not a tremendous number of apps pre-installed, and that's a good thing, and I'll explain kind of what I believe they are up to here with this distribution. And I like the direction they're heading. So the Chromium apps, that was not there by default. It's there because I installed Chromium. Under accessories, there are a few things there that, let's see. Nope, that's pretty well everything by default. You have a screenshot tool, file manager, disk manager, calculator, things like that. They added a few games. I added Warzone 2100. Love that game. Under graphics, again, you don't have a tremendous amount pre-installed. You have Simple Scan, Express by Pixlr, Editor by Pixlr, and this is part of, if I'm not mistaken, what I want to discuss with you. So Pixlr Express is not an application that is installed. This is an online use application. You can go to pixlr.com and access what we're accessing right here in a window, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And then if we go down to Internet, I've installed InSync. Actually didn't install it, but you'll see Inbox there, and you'll see ICE, which is something that's part of what makes this OS, this distribution unique. And I think you know, I'll talk about some insight where I think they're heading with this and why. So by default was Firefox. Dropbox was not installed by default. Again, that is an ICE menu icon. And Chromium was not installed. BitTorrent was installed, and then you have a link here, which I think I like this, I appreciate this, a link to the Peppermint forum and the online user guide. Under Office, this is interesting, and again, we'll get into this. You do not see LibreOffice installed here, pre-installed. What you do see in its place is Google Drive, Google Calendar, Gmail, and Document Viewer. Now, I don't mind that there's not an Office suite pre-installed myself, because I'm currently using WP Office for Linux, and I'm very excited about WP Office. So this saves me the time of possibly uninstalling LibreOffice and installing WPS. Now, WPS isn't pre-installed either. I'm just saying I would not want two Office suites full-time if I was going to focus on one. But what they've done here, again using a program called ICE, which we will get into, they have given you access to your online Google Drive, your online Google Calendar, and Gmail, which is all online, but it looks just like an app here in the menu list, and it acts like an app with a window around it. We'll move on. Preferences, Sound and Video, and System Tools. Now we're going to start from System Tools and work our way back up. I like to see this. There is a USB stick formatter and USB image writer pre-installed. I think everyone who releases a desktop-oriented distribution of Linux should include a stick formatter and an image writer. The update manager is there. Go ahead and click on that. And I installed the updates as soon as I first installed as I first installed Peppermint. I went in and ran the update manager. And I'll throw out to you that I ran into a glitch. I got about 75% of the way into the update and received an error. So I closed it out, and typically I would maybe reboot at that time, but for whatever reason I decided, okay, let me relaunch. So I relaunched, showed the updates, went into the update process, and received an error again. So that time I just went in and rebooted the system, came back in and applied the updates, and they installed flawlessly. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It could have just been, just a glitch on my side, but at any rate I'll mention that in case you run into the issue. Go ahead and reboot if you get an error, and it should install fine. The update was fast. The update manager is fast. Everything I've used in this OS has been fast and smooth and fluid. So System Tools here. Now pre-installed also was Synaptic Package Manager, and that is not always the case with Linux distributions. That's something, especially a Ubuntu based distribution, you typically have to go in and install Synaptic Package Manager. It is not there by default. Let's go ahead and take a look at Software Manager. And if you'll remember in the beginning of this, we talked about all the different bits and pieces, and here they have incorporated the Linux Mint Software Manager. And the other thing that I liked, I really appreciate seeing here, is they didn't just take the Linux Mint Software Manager and throw it in here. They have themed it out to match the rest of the desktop environment. And I'm just going to applaud them for taking the time to do that kind of thing. It's these small details that really, again, if I were a brand new user to Linux and I was using Peppermint, I wouldn't know that this was a software manager from another Linux distribution. It looks like it's meant to be, and it functions like it's meant to be, part of Peppermint OS, and the way they have spent the time and paid attention to the detail it is. And we're not going to go in and kind of go through everything here. I will say though that everything is very easy to understand. It's very attractive. Alright, I'll take that back. We'll go in and look at just the list, and there's a reason there. So if you're not familiar with the Linux Mint Software Manager, they rate various pieces of software. So you can see GIMP here has a very high rating. We're going to double click that, and in double clicking that you will see screenshots, and right over here to the right you can simply click install. And as I've installed a few bits of software, everything's installed fast and fluid. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on here. And I installed a few things under sound and video, but by default you have as your video player VLC media player. Now let's go under preferences, because there are two different icons here that I want to point out. So if I were a new user and I saw Peppermint Control Center, that would make sense to me. That would mean something to me if I had come from a Windows machine. So we're going to click on that, and this gives you access to your Windows Manager or your Window Manager, your keyboard and mouse, keyboard shortcuts, desktop effects, and then into some advanced settings. Now if I were a new user, I may not get into this, but the way everything is grouped, it's intuitive and easy to understand, and I enjoy seeing that. I appreciate seeing that. Go back to preferences, and the other link here is Peppermint Settings Panel. And again here, kudos. Everything is categorized and easy to understand. So if you go into personal, you can customize the look and feel. Here you have color, icon theme. Oh, and I want to mention this too. So all of these icons are built in. This is Peppermint 7, the default setting that you see here. They also have Peppermint Brown, Peppermint Pink, and Peppermint Red. So for the type of person that likes something that looks different and unique, it's there ready for you. But the other thing that they did was they took a very popular circle icon set known as Numix, and Numix, if you check them out, they have icon sets for Android devices, and they're very popular in Linux desktop environment as well. So to have that pre-installed was, I just chalk that up as another high mark for them. Mouse cursor, you can get into those settings and change the look of that. Your font, now this isn't the main font setting, this is the, and I'll say that this is, if I clicked on font, what I would like to see under font is the ability to not only change the hinting and things like that, but also in this location I think it would be nice to see the ability to change the font size and the font style or font type. So that could be a little confusing. And then we have other, and this will let you go in and change things on the toolbar and toolbar icon size. Can't talk this evening. And then their built-in themes are nice. So again, you have pink, red, light, pink light, red light. The default is dark, and I think dark looks very nice. You've got others, industrial, gray bird, clear looks. That's been around a while. Redmond. I wonder what they're alluding to with Redmond. Just kidding. Raleigh. I wonder if Raleigh, I think Red Hat corporate headquarters is located in Raleigh, North Carolina. And for those of you who don't know or haven't picked up on my accent, I live in North Carolina, so I wonder, just putting those together, if that's what that is meant for. Alright, we'll go back to the default dark theme. And so again, I think they've done a nice job here. We'll apply and close that out. They've done a nice job here grouping all of this together. Now earlier we clicked on the Peppermint Control Center, so from here we can click on Peppermint Control Center and go in and change some things. But I want to step back. So here is the default font. So under Customize Look and Feel, this is where you would go in and choose your font setting and size and type and style, instead of here where font is. So I just, small thing, small detail, but that could be confusing. I actually, the first time I opened this, overlooked that my detailed font settings were here as opposed to here. Alright, so we'll close that out. Now if we got into wallpapers, other than right clicking, you could also choose wallpapers from here. Language support, Firefox Themer, and then under hardware, again, groups everything together. Printers, monitor, panel, power, network, so Bluetooth, firewall, advert block, and typically I don't see advert block pre-installed often. Some people really have no problem blocking all the ads, and myself, I understand that some people make a living, their income revolves around ads, so I'm mixed there. Be nice to have a system that would let you block 50% of the ads, so you're not totally blocking everything maybe. Anyway, enough of that. And then under System you have Update Manager, Disk Utility, Default Application, Time and Date, and User Groups. So seeing this all grouped together, seeing the way this is intuitive, this is the kind of thing that tells me that the team involved has really put a lot of thought and time into this. Alright, so we'll move on from there. Let's take a look at the file manager. This is the Nemo file manager, version 2.8.7. Now Nemo is what is used in, you'll see that in Linux Mint, because Linux default desktop is the Cinnamon desktop environment. And for those of you who have watched my other videos, I'm a huge fan of the Dolphin file manager, and I would say a very close second place there is the Nemo file manager. And what I like about it, it's a clean, simple interface, but it also gives you the options that that I feel like is needed to really make it a more user-friendly file manager. So for example, you can go in and change the default icon zoom level, and you can also use a compact layout, so that would be the spacing between the icons. But the big changes in there for myself personally is I use single click to open items, and I also like to go in under display and turn off the information that appears under or beside the icons, depending on where you have it located. I like to turn those off so that I have a clean one-line description of that folder. And then under list columns and preview, you have the options there. And so what I like is that it's simple, clean interface, easy to use, but also you can go in and configure to your liking. If you right click on a folder, you're presented with a good list of features and things that can be done, so you can open with, cut, copy, paste, duplicate, make a link, rename, copy to the desktop, move it, open in terminal, open as root, that is nice to see there, move to trash. And here's one that's a little pet peeve of mine is I want to be able to delete, not just move it to trash. If it's something I know I want gone and I'm done with it, I don't want to have to just move it to trash and then go in and empty trash. I want to just delete it and be done with it. Compress into an archive. I have InSync installed, so in this case I could go ahead and sync that over to the InSync folder, which is actually Google Drive, and then you could go into Properties. Something else I want to point out here is it does a good job with thumbnails. That's a downfall of Dolphin, and some other file managers struggle with thumbnails when it comes to videos, but as you can see there, it does just fine. So I think that Nemo was a great choice instead of going with the default XFCE file manager. We talked about ICE, and I don't want to miss that, because that's a big part of why I call this a light distribution, and why I think that that the team behind Peppermint is a team that understands kind of the direction that computing is heading, and has been for a number of years, which is cloud computing. So if you are familiar at all with Google and the Google universe, you know that you have two versions of operating systems from Google. You have Android, which most people are aware of. It's probably on your phone. You have Android tablets, and those have been out for years. Android phones have been out for years, and that's what I use. I'm a big fan of the Android platform for mobile use. But a few years back, Google introduced another operating system known as Chrome OS. And Chromebooks have then become very popular, and I've tried various Chromebooks. They work fine for, to me they're too limiting, and that's changing as well, because Chrome OS now gives you the ability, or soon will give you the ability, to use Android apps inside of the Chrome OS. And I say all of this to make a point here. I think the Peppermint team understands what's going on. They have vision there, and they have included this program ICE, which allows you to, let's go in and back to internet here, which allows you to go in and access your cloud-based apps. So I'll use Google for an example. I use Google Apps, so that I could go into Google Drive, Dropbox is there, if you used Evernote, whatever you use online or in the cloud can be set up through ICE and allow you to interface that online application as if it were an app resident on your system. So that's one of the reasons that I call this a light distro, is because they have pre-set up. If you go to internet, and again I've added a few things here, but I'll use Dropbox for an example. If we launch into Dropbox, this opens in a window manager, in a window just like any other app would open, and I can treat this just like any other app. Okay, it's more or less a wrapper around Dropbox. Now if I had logged into Dropbox and that kind of thing, you would basically see a very clean windowed interface for me to interact with Dropbox. And I've got other things set up that way. Google Keep, for example. Let's see, I don't want to pull up something that's going to show the whole world all my stuff. Let's see here, what else do we have that may, bear with me. Well, this will throw a kink in things here, but what we will do, let's go in and maybe I can do Google Drive. Okay, yeah, so I haven't signed in, so no fear of showing all my files and folders to the world. If I had taken the time to log into Google Drive, once you launch this, instead of being in your browser where you're going to see tabs and other windows and sometimes advertisements depending on what it is you're using, this creates a very clean, simple to use interface. It allows you also to create a shortcut to the icon just like any other app. And I'm going to save going through and setting up ICE. I've actually done this in other videos. I'm not going to go through this process for the sake of time here, but this could run through Chrome or Firefox. I have an understanding, I believe, that Firefox no longer supports ICE, or maybe there's some issues there, but I know it definitely works in Chrome and Chromium. And I may do a separate video showing how to set up ICE. It's very simple, or you could just do a search for ICE SSB. What that stands for is Site Specific Browser. So if you go to Google and you do a search for Site Specific Browser or ICE SSB, you'll find videos on how to set this up, again for the sake of time. So we're going to move on here. I'll go into, I think, my feel, and I'm not going to rate this. I'm just going to say, if I were I would not hesitate recommending Peppermint OS 7 to a new user or an experienced Linux user. If you watch my other videos, I typically don't have a rating system. I don't have a try or don't try kind of rating. I'm impressed with what I see here. I'm impressed with, I think, the thought and time and energy that has gone into this OS. And I believe the direction that they're heading with a light distribution, including ICE and including other tools that make this somewhat a hybrid system. So what I mean by that, for example, Chrome OS does not work for me. There's not enough control there. Ice gives you kind of the best, or excuse me, Peppermint with Ice pre-installed and working 100% the way it should gives you kind of the best of both worlds. If I wanted to use Peppermint OS as a Chrome type system to where I'm just accessing things in the cloud, I could set it up that way and not install one single piece of Linux software and maintain a very light, easy, light duty OS. So kudos to the team. Give this a try. I'm sure if you've got questions or the things that you're going to want to see here, just message me, and I'll try to supply an answer or get back to you. But that's it for now, and we will catch you later.